One of the most unique styles on YouTube, Vox style. This is what we'll be recreating today, but a quick disclaimer is that I will not show you the whole animation. Editing in this style is more about recreating the assets than animation, and we'll be recreating most of the assets in After Effects. But don't worry, because you can get the project file with full animation in the asset folder in the description. Now if you want to go from being an editor struggling to create high quality content like Iman Gadzi, Vox, Danko, you name it basically, and land high paying clients, so anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000 a month, to a leveraged editor where it's easy for you to work anywhere from the world as an editor, land amazing high paying clients and feel appreciated for the work that you do and not stressed out of hitting the deadlines, then make sure to join our leveraged editor program and community. In June we'll be adding much more tutorial to the course, starting with the 3D mastery course that we actually already started building out. For now we have 3 videos in there that will set a good foundation for you to understand how to edit in 3D, but obviously in this upcoming month we'll finish this part of the course and we'll also add another tutorials to the course. So click the link in the description to join the program and community, and with that, let's get into the tutorial. Okay, so we are in After Effects, and the first thing to do is obviously to create a horizontal composition. I already did that, so you can copy my settings right there. So for now, let's import the original video. Let's go through that to see how it looks. But one thing I have to tell you, like you can see right there, in these jars there are these dollar racks, and these dollars are in 3D, and I already created these sides for these dollars, so we'll only have to build this dollar rack in 3D space. So these are the sides and the front, of course. Okay, and to create the first scene we have to go at the very end and recreate this from that point, because when creating a layout you should always start with the biggest picture. Okay, so right click here, create a new solid, set the color of that solid to the color of the background with the pick whip. Click OK, put it below the original, now we have the background. Now let's import the grid. So I have the grid right there, I will just import it. We cannot see it because it's behind the background, so let's put it above the background. And the grid is black, so to change the color of that to white, search for effect change to color and apply it on this grid. Change the color from black to white and change the change option to hue, lightness and saturation. Now we have a white grid. Open the scale on this grid by clicking S on the keyboard, and now increase the scale by just dragging here and make it fit the original video, so make it look like in the original video. Of course it will also not look exactly like in the original video because I don't have the same grid. Let's hide the grid for now and let's create this green circle. So go to the shape layers here, hold the left mouse button on that and select ellipse tool, and while holding shift create a perfect circle like that. Remove the stroke on that and set the color to the color in the original video by using pick whip here. Now duplicate this layer, and on the duplicated one make sure that the anchor point is in the middle, so we can move the anchor point to the middle by using a shortcut Ctrl Alt and Home. And now decrease the scale to 90 or even like 87. The fill has a correct color, but the stroke should be like 3 pixels and the color should be white. 3 pixels is even too much I see right now, so let's decrease the stroke to 2 pixels. Now we have to make the smaller circle the inner circle, follow the movement of the outer circle. So we do that by parenting that to the first circle layer, so using this pick whip, parent the second circle to the first circle. And now when we move the first circle, the whole object is moving with it. Okay, now import the icon from the asset folder. So you can either download some random icon of the government from the internet, or you can recreate the icon yourself. And I did just that. Before the tutorial I recreated this icon. Obviously you will get this icon in the asset folder. So now import it here, put it at the very top, and you can see I basically recreated the same icon, so it looks almost exactly the same. Put it in the middle of this circle and also parent link it to the first biggest circle, like that. Now when you move this circle everything is moving. Okay, so now with this circle we can basically recreate all of the circles in the composition, and with the gray circles the only thing that you really have to do is change the color of them here. So just duplicate the 2 circle layers, put them at the top for now, go to fill and change the fill color to the color of this circle from the original video. So use a pick whip and pick whip this color. And now we have a circle with a gray color. Okay, so we can just go on and create the jar here, because this is probably the hardest thing in this whole composition, although it's still not that hard. And we'll create this whole jar in After Effects. So with nothing selected, click G to select the pen tool, and right now just draw the same shape as the jar. We want to create a perfectly straight line at the bottom, and when we click there right now, you can see that it's bent just a little, but we can prevent that by just Alt clicking on this dot here and moving the Bezier handles like that. Now we'll create a perfectly straight line. Okay, this is how it looks for me, and I think it looks pretty good. So also make sure that the stroke color is set to the same color as in the original video. So let's go to stroke, select pick whip and pick this color. Hit OK. And also we have to make sure about the fill, because this jar will have a fill. So pick whip and make sure that it's the same color as in the original video. Let's put the anchor point of this shape layer in the middle of this shape layer. So use a shortcut again, Ctrl Alt and Home. Oh, and one more thing, I recommend that you name everything in this composition, because we'll have a lot of layers. Now with nothing selected, click G again and let's start creating the jar cap. So again, basically the same. You have to just perfectly draw the same shape as in the original video. Okay, I think it looks pretty good. Right now let's also put the original layer above everything and decrease the opacity on this layer. So you change the opacity by selecting this layer and then clicking T, and this way it will show you the opacity keyframe. Let's set that to maybe 50, and we'll be able to see those lines that we want to recreate. So again, click G and just start drawing the lines. To make it easier for ourselves, we don't want to create separate layers for all of these lines. So to avoid that, you have to select this layer, this line that we just created, then click G again, and then just create another line. And when we go to the drop down here, to contents, you can see that we have two shapes inside of one layer. Okay, now we have all 6 lines inside of one layer. And what we want to do is change the line cap and line join of them. So you change that options here under the properties, change both of these options to round. This way our lines have rounded edges. I think I will also increase the stroke on them to maybe 3. Also, when changing this line cap and line join, remember to select all of the shape layers and then click here to change it. Okay, and now we'll start creating the inside of the jar, and to do that we need the dollar, so we have to build this dollar. So for now we can just hide everything there, literally everything, and import the compositions that create this dollar. So the front dollar, side dollar and side dollar. Don't pay attention to how I call these compositions, it doesn't really matter. Okay, and we'll start building that in 3D. So to do that, select this box right there. This way you put the layer in 3D space. Change the view to 2 views. On the second view we'll be able to see from the top what is happening. And firstly, let's go to the side dollar, so the smaller layer here. Click R to open the rotation and rotate it on the Z axis. So set the Z rotation to -90, like that. And to perfectly build a layer in 3D, a really useful plugin, and it's completely free, is Motion Tools, because this plugin allows you to set the anchor point perfectly in the point where you want it. So you can put it in the center, you can put it at the right and middle, you can put it at the bottom and middle. And for now we'll need it on the up and middle, like that. Now go to the front dollar and set the anchor point on the middle on the right, like that. Open the position on the front dollar and open the position on the side dollar. And now we have to align the position on the side dollar, the X position here, with the X position on the front dollar. So just copy this value from there and paste it here. And this way we perfectly position this side, so all that is left is to rotate it. So open the rotation here and rotate it on the Y axis, put it at -90. Now when you look at the top, you can see that we've built our first side of this dollar. Now we can duplicate this side dollar. So select this layer and click Ctrl D. Go to the front dollar and set the anchor point at the left and middle, like that. So here, go to the second side dollar composition, open the position and do the same. So just copy the position from the front dollar and paste it on the second side. Now we have two sides. I will just show you one more side with this one, and then I will finish the dollar by myself because you already know how to do that. So this is this layer, as you can see, and put the anchor point of this layer at the top and middle like that. Open the position on that, put the anchor point of the front dollar at the bottom and middle, and now align the Y position this time. So copy the Y position from the front dollar and paste it on the side dollar. Now open the rotation by clicking R on the side dollar and rotate it on the X axis this time. Put it at 90. Okay, one more thing that I will show you before finishing this by myself is that to be able to better control what is happening in the 3D scene, you can actually click Alt and then left mouse button, and this way you pick the Orbit Around tool. And now you can see we have this 3D model of the dollar rack, but I created that, as you can see, with 6 compositions. And unfortunately we cannot now pre-compose it, because when you pre-compose it, then this will be in 2D. This will convert to 2D. Let's go back to one view. And now let's unhide everything, so make everything visible. Maybe let's actually hide the original layer. And to be able to perfectly control the whole dollar in 3D space, you have to create a new null object. So right click somewhere here, create a new null object. Select all of the layers that create the 3D dollar and parent link them to this null. Now also put this null in 3D by checking this box. And now we have all the controls needed to control the dollar. Let's make the original video visible again. And by playing with the position on the null and the scale also, let's try to make it look similar like in the original video. So let's put it somewhere here and obviously change the rotation, change the scale, kind of like that. Okay, so this is the position of the first dollar for me. Now let's go to two views. This is how it looks from the top. And now I think we'll create the inside of this jar by using 3 such dollar racks. So select all of these layers here and duplicate them again. And as I said, we'll have a lot of layers, but don't worry, because once we position the dollars in the right place, we'll be able to pre-compose everything and we'll essentially be able to have the whole jar in just one composition. So with the second dollar, what you want to do is not only rotate it as it should be, but you also want to put it further away from the viewer. We just want that dollar to be behind our first dollar. Let's go to 4 views. I will set this view to active camera, so the view that will get rendered. Zoom in here. If we put it like that, right now it's behind the first dollar. So now let's try to move it to the left like that. And a little down. And yeah, basically right now, once it's behind the first dollar layer, because this is what we cared about, we can just start positioning it right. As you can see, it's a lot of tweaking and just changing. I don't know if I will show you all of that, but to be honest with you, to really learn how to do that, you have to do it yourself. And now let's copy all of these layers one more time, and this will be our third dollar. And to push it fully to the back, I have to move it on the Y like that, and then I will also have to decrease the scale to 15. Okay, I believe this looks really good. So we can finally move to the next part, which will be creating the green shape inside of the jar. So with nothing selected, just click G, and let's go back to one view and draw a shape that will look kinda like this. Yeah, this is pretty good. And now the outline doesn't have to be exact. It can be just like that. Then remove the stroke on this one and set the fill to the same green color like in the original video. So let's go to the original video layer, click T and get the opacity back to 100%. Select the layer that we just created. Go to fill and select the pick whip, pick this color. Okay, I will modify it just a little, more like that. Okay, and the important thing is to put this green layer in 3D space. So check this box. For some reason right now it's here. I don't know why, but we can just put this layer here. And I think because of the way my 3D scene is set up, something is messed and this layer is also flipped. But I will not change that because all we need to do is just set up the layout. We will not be animating in 3D. So I will right click on this layer, go to transform and flip it horizontally like that. Put it so it's behind the first dollar layer, but it's in front the second dollar layer. So maybe we'll also have to change the second dollar. So it has to be kind of here. Okay, I think this is pretty good. One thing, let's put the second dollar. So this one a little lower, then also further away from the viewer. Just keep on adjusting to make it look good. I think this might look good. So this is how it looks in 3D, obviously. So you have to have the first dollar in the front, and to be honest, I don't know why it's reversed. So this dollar is the closest one to the viewer and these two are further away. But you have to make sure that the first dollar is above the green shape layer that will fill the inside of the jar, and the two other dollars are behind this layer. Now hide all of the layers that we just tweaked the options on. Let's go back to one view and we'll create a matte for all of these layers for the inside of the jar. So go to the jar body, duplicate this layer, open the scale on the duplicated one and change it so it fits kind of like in the original video, so like that. So I've set the scale on 88 and now let's remove the stroke on this one. Put this duplicated layer at the very top of everything and let's call it jar body matte. Now make all of these layers visible again. Select all of them right now. All of the layers that are in 3D, I think. Go to toggle switches modes and set the track matte, so this parameter here, to this layer. And we do that by just pick whipping it here. Like that. Boom. Now you see everything is visible only inside of this layer that we just created. Okay, maybe I'll also tweak the rotation on this dollar a little. Like that. Now we need a dollar sign. So inside of the asset folder you have an asset that is called dollar symbol. Move it to the timeline, put it at the top and just position it in the right place, and of course also change the scale. I would say it has to be a little smaller than in the original video because they used different dollar, and also change the color of this dollar to the color from the original video, so this gray. So apply an effect change to color, set the from color to the color of our layer, so black, and set the to color to the color from original video and change the change option to hue, lightness and saturation. Now let's hide the original layer and this is how our jar looks. So let's maybe put this dollar a little lower, like that. Okay, I think I will also make this dollar smaller, maybe 17, and move it a little higher. I will also hide our grid because we don't need it for now. Okay, and now we'll create these white lines here, as you can see. So I think to do that, we'll put the original layer behind everything, except for the background, of course. Make sure that the scale is 100, and just right now with nothing selected, click G and start drawing lines like that. Set the stroke to 2 pixels maybe, yeah, I think it's good. Set the line cap and line join to round and change the color to white. And we have the first line. Oh, and of course you can see it has a fill, so we don't want that, but it will honestly not make any difference because anyway it will be green on a green background. But let's remove the fill. Then with this new shape layer selected, click G again. So again we'll be creating every shape here inside of one layer. But to do that, we actually cannot move this layer from there because we want them in the same position in our edit. So keep this line here for now, and with this layer selected, click G and draw all of these shapes here. And now when we have all of them, we can actually move them to our composition, to our edit. And now you can see in the original edit, the opacity of them is lowered. So just with this layer selected, click T and decrease the opacity to, let's try 70. I think 70 is even too much, so maybe 60. Yeah, I believe 60 is good. So now we have the jar, and as I told you, we can now just pre-compose everything there. Maybe let's only rename this layer to white lines and select all of the layers creating the jar. Right click on them and pre-compose, and let's call it jar. Let's see if it works if we move it. Yep, we basically have the whole jar in just one composition. Make sure to put the anchor point of this jar in the middle of this jar. So you can see right now the anchor point is here, but we want it in the middle. So we do that by going to the pan behind tool, click on that and just move the anchor point approximately in the middle. So here. Now just duplicate this jar. So select this layer and click Ctrl D, open the position on that and move the second one to the right. So now we have the jars, we have the green and gray circles. So we'll use the green circles also here. So the only things that are remaining are lines, this person icon and the text. So let's create the lines for now. With nothing selected, click G and draw a line like that. You don't have to be precise for now. Let's change the stroke to 3. Go to stroke color, select pick whip and pick whip this color. Now go to the drop down of this line, go to contents, shape, stroke and click this plus next to the dashes. This way we've created a dashed line. Right now set the dashes to, I would say maybe 10 was good actually, so the default value. No, maybe actually a little less, so let's say 8. Set the line cap and line join to round And now I see that we actually have to decrease this number. So let's go with 7. Now click the plus to the dashes again. And this way we've added the gap option. So we have the option to increase or decrease the gap. Let's increase the stroke to 4. So I think the dashes could be at 5 and then the gap could be at 12. It could be still a little wider. So let's increase the stroke to 4.5. Yeah, now it's better. So we've created a line here. Let's call it dashed line. Let's duplicate this line, right click on the duplicated one, go to transform and flip it horizontally, put it here. Okay, so the only thing that is remaining that I have to show you here is how to create this person icon and how to do this text. So to create the text, right click here, create a new text. It's really big right now, as you can see by the size of this line. So let's decrease it here and let's type what is in the original video. You can see there is a big distance between these two lines and it is because of this option, so I have to decrease it. Also I have to check this option to make the text centered. Let's decrease the distance between the lines even more. And I think the exact font that they used in this video is called Franklin Gothic ATF. And the version is black. Let's decrease the size of the letters so they match with the original. Okay, this is pretty close, I believe. So now let's change the color to the color from the original video. So go to fill and just pick with this color. And we have the text here, so you know how to do that. So now I will only create this icon here. So to create this icon, go to shape tools here, hold left mouse button on that and select ellipse tool while holding shift, draw a circle like this one. Obviously change the stroke to something like 2 pixels. Change the stroke color to the color from the original video and the fill color also to the color from the original video. This way we created a head. And to create the body with nothing selected, click G to select the pen tool. And just draw a shape that will look like this body here. So when holding shift, you can actually perfectly move only in this straight line like that. You see, I'm holding shift and this way I'm moving up and down and my handles are still in a perfect horizontal position. And now just connect it with this point. And it's already perfect, as you can see. Okay, and this way we've created the icon. One more thing here is to connect the head to the body layer of this icon. So it will be just much easier to control the whole icon, as you can see. Okay, and it's moving incorrectly because we have to put the body anchor point in the middle of this body, so click Ctrl Alt and Home. Okay, so this is basically how my layout looks. As you can see, it looks pretty good, but there is one thing that I want to change here, and it's the grid in the background. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact grid that Vox used, so I will just create the grid from the original video manually. So let's delete the grid that I gave you in the assets, make the original video visible and solo this layer. So solo the original video by checking this box here. Okay, and now I will create this grid by basically just making lines, creating lines. So with the pen tool selected, I will click here and then I will go down, and while holding shift, click here. This way you create a straight line. So we want to create all of these lines in just one layer. So select the rectangle that we just created, click G to select the pen tool, click here, then go down there and while holding shift, click here. Okay, so this is how my grid looks, and actually I didn't create it inside of one layer, so now I will just pre-compose all of these layers and call it grid. So select all of these layers, right click, pre-compose, and let's call it grid. Let's put the grid that I just created behind everything else, except for the background of course, and let's also decrease the opacity on the grid a little, maybe 70 even. Yeah, 70 is good, I think. Okay, and one more thing is to make sure that these lines, these dashed lines that we created, let's see in the original video actually how they look. So you can see they're on top of the gray circle, but they are behind the green circles. So to do that, we just have to change the order of the layers. So let's select this dashed line and I have to put it below the green circle. But you can see that the layer order is still bad, because even though it is behind the green circle, it should be above the gray circle. So we have to select the gray circle and put it below the dashed line like that. Now the order is correct, and now we'll do that here. Let's move all of these dashed lines below. Okay, the only line that is not correct right now is this one. So I have to find it. Okay, it's here. Let's put it below the other layers. And now let's put the gray circle here below the line like that. And also one more thing, I see that I have to make these two middle lines a little longer. Let's find them. Then when you select one of these layers, click G And while holding shift, you can extend this line without changing the rotation, the, direction of this line. Now let's do the same with this one. Okay, so now we can start animating. But first, probably we should organize these layers and label some of them because we have a lot of them. Let's see in the original video how this animation looks. So the whole composition is zooming out, the grid has an opacity animation, then these circles there are popping off with the scale animation, the lines are getting drawn and the text also is getting drawn, kinda. Then the jar scales down, and the bills or something like this appear. So what we can do for sure to make it more organized is pre-compose all of these icons with the corresponding circle behind it. And you do that by just selecting the head, the body, and then we have to find the circles in the back. So these are the 2 circles. Let's maybe put all of these layers at the very top. So we have 4 layers, right click on them, and pre-compose them. I will call it person 6. Okay, I will do that with the rest of the icons and I will get back to you. Okay, I have all of the person icons and you can see that we cleared this timeline just a little. So we can start animating. Let's make the original layer visible and let's solo that and see what is the frame at the start. We can only see these 3 circles, no grid in the background, and then it's just zooming out. Okay, so to create this animation, maybe let's also put the original layer at the very bottom so it's not confusing us. And let's right click here, create a new null object, select everything except for the original layer and maybe also except for the background and connect it to this null by using this pick whip. Open the position by clicking P and then also open the scale by clicking Shift plus S. This way you open 2 parameters. Go at the start, keyframe it here and go like maybe 50 frames later. So my composition is almost 30 frames per second, so 50 frames is more than 1.5 seconds. And let's keyframe it here. At the start, just zoom it and put it lower. Okay, so right now we have this animation of zooming out. Okay, this animation has some easing applied. So we select both of these sets of keyframes, these 4 keyframes, click F9 and go to Graph Editor. And I think the easing that is applied on this animation is basically select this first keyframe, move it to the left, and select the second handle and move it to the right. So we make it so that most of the animation is happening in the middle of this movement, like that. Let's maybe move this a little to the left, just correct it a little. Now it's too aggressive. We have to move these handles closer to the keyframe points. Yeah, now it's much better. Also, maybe I will move the second set of keyframes more like here. And for sure at the start we cannot see these icons and we also cannot see these lines. Maybe I will also put it a little lower like that. So the position on the null object. Let's see one more time. Let's go frame by frame. So here we start seeing the icons. Let's mark this moment, so Shift plus 4. And we created this mark on the timeline. And then somewhere here we'll start animating the text. Let's go here, mark this point as Shift plus 5. Then let's see when our grid starts appearing. Okay, right there I believe. So at the mark that we already created. So our grid starts appearing with our icons. Then we have to check when the lines start appearing. Right there. Or maybe even, yeah, 1 frame earlier. So here, when you double click on the mark, you can change the name here. So at this point the icons will start appearing, but also the grid will start appearing. So let's go to grid. We can cut it, so put the start at this moment, at this place. Click T to open the opacity, keyframe that. Let's go like right there, so 20 frames later, and keyframe that again. And at the start, set the opacity to 0%. And here I see this mark should be labeled as text. So select all of these icons that we have there, cut the start of them to this moment because we will not need them earlier. Now we can actually go a little later when we see the whole screen and we have to adjust the anchor points of all of these person icons. Because for example, when I select the person 1 icon, you can see that the anchor point is here. And now when I try to scale that, you can see that it's scaling from this anchor point and not from the middle of the icon. So with this layer selected, go up here and pick pan behind tool. And now put the anchor point in the middle of this shape of this icon. And now do that with all the other 5 icons. Okay, I have all the anchor points in place. So right now just select all of them, hit on S on your keyboard to open the scale, keyframe it here, go like 13 frames later. keyframe it again here, and at the start set the scale on all of them to 0. And now we have to stagger them, so basically make it so that they randomly appear and not all at once, like right now. And I will use a plugin, Motion Tools, for that. I already told you about this plugin. And here you have a really good option to stagger. Here you select the amount of frames by which you want to stagger the layers. Let's go with 10 maybe. And now just click on this icon. Now we've staggered these icons. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, pretty good. It is not exactly how it looks in the original video, but I think it still gives a very interesting look. Like, there is no problem of creating exactly what they did in the original video, but I just wanted to show you that you can actually tweak some settings and it will still look really good. But I think 10 is too little. We have to stagger them by more. Go with 16 frames and stagger them. Now push them so that the start of the first layer is here at the icons mark, and let's see how it looks. It goes for a little too long, I would say, so let's move this layer here. Now I will move this layer here also to make it a little more random. Also, we can make it a little quicker, so select the second set of keyframes on all of the icons and move it like, I don't know, 2 frames earlier or 3 frames earlier. Okay, yeah, now it's really good. Now let's go to the text mark. Select both of the text layers that we have and cut them so that the start is at this mark. And now we have to animate them, like basically every letter is getting animated with the opacity, but every letter individually, of course, one by one. And we could do that manually right there. There are options to do that here, but actually there is also a free plugin for that I highly recommend, but I don't have it right now in my window, so I'll go to Window, and the plugin is called Animation Composer Free. So click on that. Now we have a panel with this plugin, but I will also move it to the right. And this plugin just gives you a lot of animation presets that you can use to make your workflow faster. So go to Starter Precoms, go to Transition Text Layers, Animate Characters, click on that, and you can see all of the presets that they have here. So I think it's just the first one, Fade Characters Separately. So select both of these text layers, click on this preset from start and click in. Now when we go through the timeline, you can see they're animated. And now these 2 points, these 2 marks that got created indicate when the animation is fully finished. So right there it's still animating and here it's finished. So I would move both of these marks a little closer, like there, so the animation is just faster. Okay, it's really good. And now we just have to animate the lines. Let's find them. These are the lines. Cut the start of them to this moment, to this mark. Select one of them, go to the drop down, go to the add menu here and select trim paths. Now go to trim paths, keyframe the end, go like 10 frames later, keyframe the end again, and at the start set it to 0. Now this line is animated and I think it's too fast. Let's move it a little later. Okay, maybe just a little faster, like that. Okay, and now select both of these keyframes, Ctrl C, so copy them, select the other 5 dashed lines and paste these keyframes here. Now when we click U, it will show you all of the used keyframes on these layers. So let's see how this animation looks for now. Okay, perfect. So we have successfully animated the first frame. I know it took some time, but you have to really spend some time to get these assets to look right. Okay, now I can also see that actually the text is animated almost up until the very end. Like you can see here, the opacity on this one is still decreased. It's maybe fully animated somewhere here. Let's mark this point and let's adjust that in our animation. So move these 2 points much later, but maybe the left text, since it's longer, will take longer to animate. So let's move it to this point, but this one, let's keep it here and see right now. Okay, yeah, it's pretty good. I also don't like the placement of the second text, so disability insurance. Maybe let's select this text and move it a little more to the left, so it's aligned a little better with these 3 icons. So the next animation starts, like here you can see the dot there, and this is the dollar bill that will get animated. So we can say that it starts here. So let's mark this point with Shift+4 and let's see how this looks and when it's finished. So basically the jar is getting smaller and is rotating towards this icon, towards the middle you can say. And then these bills are also getting rotated and also the scale is getting bigger and the animation is finished here. So let's mark this point Shift+5. And obviously we also have to create these bills. But it's a pretty simple design if you've created everything alongside with me up until this point. So if you've managed to create the jar, you surely know how to create that. Basically the outline you can create with the rectangle tool. Then the dollar will use the same dollar as we used on the jar. And then here are the lines, obviously. So I will just get back to you when I create that. Okay, so this is how it looks. I've created this dollar bill. Okay, let's hide the original layer and also let's unsolo these dollar layers. Now select all of the layers that create this dollar and right click on them and pre-compose them. Let's call this bill. Move the start of that layer here, since it will be animated from this point. Now go to pan behind tool right there and make sure that the anchor point is in the middle, somewhere here. Now duplicate this layer, so select it and click Ctrl D and move the duplicated one to the right. And let's start animating. So at the first mark that we created, open the scale on both of the bills, keyframe the scale here, go to the second mark, keyframe the scale here again, and at the first mark set the scale to 0 on both of them. Also select all of them and click Shift plus R, this way you open rotation, keyframe the rotation here, keyframe the rotation at the end, and at the start we don't see anything because I already created this scale keyframes, so let's delete one of the scale keyframes and let's set the opacity to -18, I think maybe -20. Then let's create the scale keyframe again and set it to 0. We can look to the right to see how it looks. Okay, I see in a moment we'll have to also apply easing to that, but first let's set the rotation on the second dollar bill to 20, because this bill is animated the other way than this one. So now let's animate the jars in the same places basically. So here we have the jar layers, select both of them and click S, and then click Shift plus R. Now we have two parameters, keyframe it here, go to the second keyframe, keyframe it here. Okay, at the start everything is right, and at the second keyframe, for now we can also hide the bills. At the second keyframe we want the rotation to be towards the middle, maybe also -20 on this one, on the right one, and on the left one 20. And the scale should be at 0, obviously. Now let's unhide the bills, see how it looks. Okay, really good, but now we have to apply easing to that. So select both of the keyframes on one of the bills and click F9, go to graph editor right there, and we want most of the animation to happen at the start. So select the second handle and move it to the left, like that. Now here we see this animation. You can see it's much better. Now we have to apply the same easing to the second bill and to these two jars. So we can just select these keyframes and using another free plugin that is called EaseCopy. Again, I highly recommend that, it's completely free. And this plugin allows you to copy the easing applied to certain keyframes to other keyframes. So select all of these keyframes, click copy, select the ones where you want to paste it and click paste. Select the keyframes on the jars and click paste again. Let's see right now. Yep, it's pretty smooth, but now we've run into another problem, and it's that our lines are not long enough. You can see they are too short because they end here. And when we had jars here, it looked good, but when we have bills, it doesn't look good. So we have to make these lines longer. So on our animation, go and find these lines. So for example, these 6 dashed lines, select one of them, click G, and this way, while holding Shift, you can extend it. Like that. Oh, and now I can see that it also has a fill and we don't want that. So let's remove the fill on that. Now do that with all of the other lines. So select it, click G, and while holding Shift, extend it. And let's see how it looks right now. Yep, now it's perfect. Let's go back to original video, and the next animation starts here. So let's mark this point using Shift plus 4. Basically the lines are getting drawn from 100% to 0. The icons are getting smaller, so the scale animation, but this time all at once. The screen is zooming to the right dollar, and everything else is just getting smaller, except for the text. The text is not moving anywhere. Let's see when this animation is fully finished. So it's here. And now I'm going through the original video to find where the different parts of this animation start and finish. And I'm also marking these points on the timeline. And another thing that we can do is actually decrease the opacity on the gray circles, because in the original video you can see the lines through them, so the opacity is decreased. So let's find these gray circles. It's for example this one and this one. Click T on that and decrease the opacity to 70 maybe. So on the outer one 70 is good, but on the inner one let's decrease it to 50, maybe even 30. Yeah, now it's pretty good, but maybe 35. And now just repeat the same on the left gray circle. So here at the mark that we created, we'll start moving this bill, so the right bill, to the middle. Let's keyframe the scale and the position this time in this moment, and let's keyframe it at the start, at the end I mean. So at the end we want it to look, firstly it should be bigger, and the second thing it should be in the middle, like that. And to find where exactly is the middle, you can use this option, so title, action, save, and this shows you where is the middle of the screen. So I think we are pretty much aligned, and I want it a little bigger, so 210 on the scale. Yeah, even bigger and also more in the center. So move it down and make the scale 240, maybe even 260. And this is how it looks right now. You can see it doesn't look good because we have to smooth these keyframes. So firstly select the scale keyframes, go to graph editor, and I would like to create something like this, so a step is in animation. Okay, I actually made a mistake because this dollar is only going to the left and I made it also go down, and it is because the screen is zooming in a way that it makes this dollar to be in the middle. So let's just copy the position, Y position, so 449, and paste it here. Select these two bill layers, move them below the null object, and also parent link them to this null object. It doesn't change anything for now, but right now select this null object and click U, keyframe the position and the scale, move this keyframe to the 4 point, to the 4 mark that we created, go to the 5th mark and move everything lower. What is the scale on the first keyframe? 100. So the scale here maybe 150. I think this is pretty good, so 155 maybe, let's try, and put it a little lower like that. And let's see how it looks right now. And actually it might not be that okay. Yeah, the dollar bill should be a little bigger and the whole screen also should be a little higher. So let's move the whole screen a little higher and increase the scale on this bill to 170, 180 maybe even. Okay, and now we have to take care of the easing. So select the scale keyframes, go right there, make sure it's eased in like that. And now go to position keyframes, go here, and right now it's also eased in. Okay, actually I don't think it's good. Let's select both of these keyframes and just make a normal easing. So something like this. Select the scale keyframes on the dollar, is in is here, and select the position keyframe on this dollar bill. I think I will move this heel from there somewhere here. So let's do it like that. Something like this, let's see. Yeah, now I think it's really good. Okay, so this is how this animation looks right now. As you can see, everything is zooming and the dollar is getting in the middle of the screen. So everything here is good. So the only thing that is remaining to finish this transition is to animate everything in the background. And I don't think there is a point in showing you that, because all of the animations that we created up until this point were only like scale and position animations. So it's pretty easy to do. And this background animation is no exception. So here we'll only animate scale and position of all of the layers in the background. The only things that will not animate are text layers, and on the lines, except for the scale and position, we'll also animate the trim paths. So this is everything in this tutorial.